Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero. Our guest today is Dr. Tom Demere. He's the curator of paleontology and the director of paleo services at the San Diego Natural History Museum in beautiful Balboa Park. Dr. Demere has authored several articles and scientific papers about the paleontological history of Southern California and the evolutionary history of marine mammals, which fascinates me because my favorite animal is the orca. He's been with the San Diego Natural History Museum since 1979, which should tell us two things. That he's got one of the coolest jobs in the world, and that he ain't getting off this train till the wheels fall off. And it's going to be a while before that happens because all indicators point to Dr. Tom having a whole lot of fight left in him, and we all need him to do his work. In addition to being an historian, as director of paleo services, he works with the various municipalities all through Central and Southern California in the planning and operational stages for residential and commercial developments, infrastructure projects, natural gas pipelines, power plants, and utility transmission lines to assess and sometimes mitigate their impact on the surrounding geology and what it might contain. Dr. Demere welcomes Scott and Pete to the Natural History Museum, San Diego, which, by the way, you should check out if you're in and around the area. And if you really dig what they're doing, become a member. Or give them a few bucks or volunteer and help them do some of the fascinating work. Maybe you'll get to dig up some bones or be part of a major discovery that reshapes our understanding of history. Anyway, the fellas talk a bit about the current understanding of human history and various other creatures and how they got to North America, and about many other things that may surprise you about paleontology. Like, they got a rooftop bar at the San Diego Natural History Museum and it's cracking at nighttime. Now, we love what we do to bring you the Break It Down show, and as a listener, you clearly care about learning something from some fascinating folks. So I'm going to ask you to do two things today. Go out and support the charities you care about or that are making a difference in your neighborhood or for some people you care about, whether it's the San Diego Natural History Museum, or maybe it's the Bluegrass Music Hall of Fame and Museum in Owensboro, Kentucky. Donate some money, volunteer your time, lend a helping hand. You'll feel great about it, and you'll meet some like-minded people, and you'll learn something meaningful. We support Save the Brave, and you can find them at savethebrave.org. We also support SEAL Veterans Foundation, and you can go to sealveteransfoundation.org to see what they're about. You've probably heard me say that Pete is doing the Coronado SEAL Memorial Swim on Saturday, September 21st to benefit the families of Naval Special Warfare operators who've made the ultimate sacrifice to defend our freedom. And Pete is supporting them on September 21st by swimming in a Sangha, so go see that. We also want to shout out someone special at the Natural History Museum. Stefania Villar hooked us up with Dr. Tom, and that is unforgettable, so she's awesome, and we're grateful. Thank you, Stefania. Here with Scott and Pete is our special guest today, Dr. Tom Demere.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hi, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hello, my name is Tom Demere. I'm curator of paleontology here at the Nat. And we're on the Break It Down show.
And now, the Break It Down show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
I think that was perfect.
It was perfect. I love it. I can fix everything in post.
Love it.
Yeah, so I've been reading Mr. Hancock's book about early American history, and he referenced this guy, Tom, from the Nat in San Diego. And I'm like, wait, what? What's going on here? I live right by San Diego. I got to go talk and learn about paleontology, and just, it's such a fascinating thing. You know, you see it all the time. And actually, as a kid living up in the Bay, I remember when they found the, a mastodon down here in this area.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I remember that news story as a kid, and I thought, I didn't know what to make of it. Because what you guys find to get excited and what I picture in my 13-year-old head are two different things. I picture like a woolly mammoth jacket and maybe some cool boots or something. Anyhow, so I wanted to come down and talk to you just to learn a lot about what you do and just, expand everybody's mind in terms of paleontology and how we are still today putting pieces together. It's such a fascinating topic. And we have Scott, best-selling author Scott Huesing, sitting here with us.
Yeah, good to be here.
Hey, this is Pete. Real quick, I just want to let you guys know we are proud to announce our official support of Save the Brave, a certified nonprofit 501c3 with a charter of helping veterans with post-traumatic stress. Here's how you can help. Go to savethebrave.com, click on the link on the website, and my recommendation is this. Subscribe. Give them $20 a month. You've got subscriptions that you can turn off right now that you're not using that are $20 a month. Swap that out. Get involved. Let's help these folks out.
Best-selling author Scott Huesing sitting here with us.
Yeah, good to be here.
It's, for a guy that tried to escape school as much as possible with a, again, not a true confession, 1.24 GPA in high school, did a little better in college, and sit here with, Dr. I'm going to use the absolute proper Dr. Tom Demere. He's a super humble guy out of the chute, but to be here at the Nat in the museum and just walking up here with Stephanie's in studio with us too in Tom's office. Hey, Stephanie.
Hi.
Love it. But we got a mini tour coming up here. I'm thinking we're going to learn some shit today. Stuff today, and you can say that on here. But
Oh, good.
yeah, it's not G-rated show, but sorry, Stephanie. But just to learn so much and really get an education. We had some conversations to Tom coming down. I was like, so what is Tom? Like, who would Tom be the equivalent to? Would he be like Ross on Friends? And Pete,
Please, no.
You'd be like Ross's boss?
No.
Yeah, and then I said, Ross's boss's boss.
I'd be his ex-boss because he would have been fired.
And I do just not for your benefit, but for my friends listening. I actually read the abstract from your most recent paper, talking about the SOPs you guys would like to see. So I've actually done some academic level reading, and we can stop talking about that or talk more about your recent paper. But where would you want to start? I mean, this is your world. You've been here for decades, learning and teaching and everything.
I've been at the NAP for 40 years, which is a long time, even for me. Yeah, well, as a paleontologist, I have the privilege of studying the history of the planet, and that's what we do. Deep history. Geologists refer to this as deep time. We're used to thinking in terms of minutes, seconds, hours, maybe days, years. But for paleontologists, geologists, it's thousands of years, more likely 100,000 of years, millions of years. And to be able to explore that history by going out in the field and looking at stratified deposits that preserve this record of ancient environments, ancient climates, and the organisms that occupied those environments. That's really exciting. And so we have the opportunity to dig up new things and figure out what they have to tell us about the history of the planet and their role in it. And this site that you're referring to that we excavated actually in 92 originally, this Mastodon site here in San Diego, that we were puzzled over when we were excavating it, and over the 25-year period, we were able to cobble together eventually enough other scientists that were interested in it because it had an archaeological component to it. We had to find some archaeologists that were willing to stick their neck out for a site that was as old as this site. It's at 130,000.
Do anthropologists come into play too, or?
Physical anthropologists could. We're the ones that study skeletons and what they have to tell us about the primate family tree. But we don't have any human remains at our site. It's all circumstantial evidence. It's what we call expedient tools and broken bones.
How did you... We run in such vastly similar circles, Pete and I, a lot, but we also interview on the Break It Down show so many cool guests from such diverse backgrounds and outside our own circle. We know how we evolved into the military. Obviously, I was kind of a bad kid, so I was thrust into it. But when you were growing up in the Bay Area, in San Francisco area, what thrust you into this? I mean, were you one of those kids like, hey, I got to find what's at the bottom of the sandbox? Or like, what sparked that? I always am fascinated, like, what drives you to this career?
Yeah, I've thought about that a bit because I wasn't a kid that was interested in dinosaurs. I was interested in exploring. I had 3 brothers, and we did a lot of crazy stuff. And we lived on a creek, and we would explore the creek. We would construct rafts and build things. And but I I wasn't interested in, specifically interested in fossils, but I did like to collect things. I collected shells, and I collected books, and I collected insects, and I organized them, and so I kind of had this curator mentality. But it wasn't until college when I took a geology class that I really thought.
What kind of major did you start out, or were you undeclared?
I was a photography major.
Okay.
Large format film photography still, and I was at community college up in the Bay Area.
Wait, you didn't go the traditional path and go to a high-end university right from the start?
No, I was a community college student, but I took a geology class, and I was just blown over by this window into the past, and this ability that it gives you to look at a road cut that most people just drive by and see time and see different environments. And so I became a geology major when I moved to San Diego, but I have to admit I moved to San Diego because of the warm water.
Smart.
Because I was surfing all the time, and so I came to San Diego. So it's kind of a mixed passion that I have.
We just got 2 layers peeled back. Surfer dude, photographer, paleontologist.
Seriously.
How do we categorize Tom? Like, I'm just thinking.
Awesome?
Awesome? No,
surfer.
like a guess, like what category fall in, yeah.
Yeah, because we think in terms of like athletes and authors and all these other things.
Scientists, PhDs, doctors.
Yeah. Gosh, we've had so many on the show. Is there a who sort of sets you on your way? Like, okay, the survey class is one thing, but I'm assuming that's not the point where it pivots and you're like, no, this is it.
Well, it's interesting. In high school, I had a math teacher who kind of turned things around for me, Mr. Holbert. And I always wish I had written him a letter or two after I'd finished my PhD, but he had passed away by then. But yeah, he just kind of turned me around and gave me a window into science and math and the fact that I could do this sort of thing. I just didn't know it at the time. And yeah, so it was that kind of was part of it. It was kind of a germ of what would eventually turn into something much different for me, being a science major.
What did your folks say? What was your parents' background when you announced to them, "Hey, guess what I'm going to do for a living"?
You're never going to make money doing that.
Well, they said, "I'm glad you graduated from college," right?
Yeah.
So they were happy that I met a girl who I married and still married to.
Fantastic.
And
so far, so good.
And I got a job in my field right out of
winning,
pretty much right out of school. And I was living 500 miles from them. So what could they say anyway?
Yeah.
But no, they were happy for me. Yeah.
What was the first job? What can budding paleontologists graduating from UCLA expect? Like, what's your first job?
Well, actually, I just had my bachelor's degree, so I went to school. I was working at a micropaleontology firm here in San Diego, which is when you drill for oil exploration, they take samples out of the drill cuttings and they can screen wash those, and they get these little tiny fossils, marine plankton fossils, and they help you tell time and environment.
Wow.
By going downhole, they change going downhole, and that change is a reflection of evolution, but it also allows you to correlate from one layer underground to another, and it can help you understand the structure underground, like and that leads to where oil might be found. So that's what we did.
Wow.
And then I went back to school. I was working there, and I went to USC and got a master's degree in geology.
There's 2 things I want to ask. The search for oil, like we think of dinosaurs, but really it's leaves and plankton and all kinds of other things.
It's mostly planktonic organisms. Right. Yeah, foraminifera, which are little zooplankton, and a lot of plant diatoms and these things called calcareous nanoplankton, coccolus.
Wow.
Just this constant rain of organic material.
And it just gets packed in.
Time.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about time. And more than 6,000 years, I should say.
Wow. Yeah.
I just wonder, like, at what point...
No, I only threw that because that's a biblical...
Oh, sure, yeah.
The age of the Earth is much older than that, yes.
How old is the planet Earth?
4.3 billion.
4.3 billion with a B. But when do you get your clock recalibrated, man? Like, in college and on the job, where you stop thinking in normal human terms, like seconds, minutes, hours, years, into these massive chunks of time where, I mean, just everything you look at as kind of as a surfer, artist, photographer, like the lens that you look at things through must be vastly different. I don't know. How would you explain that to someone that has no insight into the vast scope of
it's a
how
great
you
question,
measure time?
Scott. Even though I say millions of years or billions of years, I frankly I can't comprehend what that means. The only way I really get a grasp on it is to, it's standing on the south rim of the Grand Canyon, looking down into
looking back in time,
and you see how thick that is, and you just think, time is represented in those rocks, and that's just a fragment of the geologic time for the age of the Earth. But it gives you a sense of how much time there is in the Earth. When you think of each layer and how long it might take to deposit each layer, although there's no constant rate of accumulation of sediment, but you can average it, and just that gives you a sense of, God, that's a long time.
It's the same thing like light traveling from a distant galaxy. It takes billions of years.
Astronomer thinks because I say that in kind of comparison to modern day society, where especially in America, we are a fast food nation. We want fast cash, fast food. We want, fast
cars,
everything, everything we want instantaneously. We want fast shopping on Amazon, but to see things through your brain is so compacted with so much information. And how do you look at things differently, though, to kind of get back to that question? Is like the things seem not so, like, why rush around so much? Because the insignificance of what you're doing, you're like what we're doing in this moment, or all the social media stuff, and like, do you see it that way?
Yeah.
Or
Mrs. Nat calls you at your desk, and she's like, I need that report on Friday. Do you roll your eyes and go, what's Friday?
Oh, no, I mean, there is a disconnection sometimes between the things I need to do and this concept of geologic time. But the perspective is that there's a deep history to the planet, and there's a deep history to all the organisms on the planet. And I mean, in your body, you have DNA that reflects relationships that Homo sapiens has with other members of the primate family tree, and we carry those remnants in us, and our skeletons too reflect this history that we have with this particular group of mammals that we call primates, and then that particular group of mammals we call primates is closely related to another group. And as you step back, for me, I look at the biology of our planet, and I see this huge, intricate family tree, this tree of life, and with all these amazing branches that are still extant. But then as a paleontologist, I can fill in all the branches that have been pruned by extinction, and it gives you a sense of how connected we all are. So I don't have the sense that we're insignificant. I have a sense that we belong to this bigger story.
The network. Because 4.3 billion years, the planet, and then the human animal didn't inhabit until...
Well, Homo sapiens maybe 200,000 years.
200,000 years, yeah. I was going to say 250,000, but I was off. But
that's close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty close.
And to think that what we've done, I took a little anthropology in college, Illinois State though, not UCLA or USC. But I think it's interesting perspective though for most people that they're getting like a high school or college, geology refresher just by listening to this podcast with Tom on the show and Stephanie and the amazing things you do. You talk about the human animal and the network and everything. I mean, just walking up, you think about like the physical skeletons we walk past and where they were compacted in the earth and what we take for granted on our daily lives when we're so hamstrung by a lot of this technology, which is ironic because we're sitting here recording on a podcast on something that fits in literally in Pete's briefcase. But how does the technology, how has that helped you? So you've been here 4 decades, 40 years at the Nat here in San Diego, which is a great location right by the zoo, ocean view. He's on the top floor. But back in the day, and you talked about your library, and there's like this huge stack of books behind you, and I assume that he, unlike my library, he's actually read all the books.
Not all of them, no.
No? That's a good true confession right there.
I can't say I have.
Yeah.
Not that I don't want to, but I haven't.
Yeah, it's
a lot
it's
of
tough.
them,
It's challenging. It's kind of been my curse too. Is like a kid that didn't read his first book until I was in Desert Storm as a young Lance Corporal. Now people give me all these books, and I can't keep up now that I'm an author. But how's the technology helped you, or maybe even hindered you, where to get the information you used to probably have to spend weeks or months or travel to get that information, and then you got this crazy thing the kids are all talking about, this fad called the internet, and
it's terrific.
Yeah, it's
the internet.
How does that help you? Does it hurt? Do you have to continually vet the information? Because you can't just go to Wikipedia and say, "Oh, this is paleontology." People will believe what they read online, like it's gospel. I mean, he's got 3 monitors on his desk sitting here, and a walrus head on the wall. Is it a prehistoric walrus?
No,
just a walrus.
It's a mounted head of a female Arctic walrus, right?
Arctic walrus. So talk about the
technology.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's terrific. I mean, the internet is terrific for networking with other scientists. I have colleagues I work with in other parts of the world, and where we used to have to send snail mail and wait. I mean, now we can be almost, well, and it depends on how far away they are. Well, how late we're willing to stay up. We can Skype, but the email is terrific for sharing information, sharing files, carrying on collaborative research projects where you don't have to travel necessarily, which is kind of a bummer because it's good to travel to Italy, I have to admit, and Japan. So that part of it's terrific. Imaging technology has been a real boon to paleontology. CT scanning, both medical scanners but also high-resolution micro CT scanners provide incredible windows into the anatomy of organisms that we could never see before. I'm working on a project with a colleague at San Diego State on a little whale, and there's a 3D print of that skull sitting over there in the corner. And we CT scanned this fossil. It's about 25 million years old from Washington, and it's an early missing link, I'd say, between living baleen whales and their ancient toothed ancestors. And it's an animal that has teeth, but we think it also had some kind of proto-baleen. And we've done some very detailed scanning of that skull, and we can trace the vascular structures in the face, the rostrum of this that are to us clear indications that the blood vessels that would feed just the teeth in toothed whales in this animal are feeding the teeth and these new structures on the palate that would be for the baleen plates.
Yeah.
So that technology has really allowed us to do this. We couldn't have done this 15 years ago, and then we can make 3D prints of it.
Yeah,
and
then in 3D prints in different different almost like CAT scan level things
detail.
Like you could start to look at.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah, the like the internal head structure, like for a bird to see like what kind of sound it might make. You could really play around with that structure.
Yeah, and then we can make movies of this too, and we can then strip away the bones and just look at the vascular structures, which in an animal 25 million years old, I mean, we're looking at where the bloods and nerves went.
Yeah,
and we can just look at that, and that's incredible to be able to do.
It seems like with with what all of you folks do, it's easy to get siloed and lose track of what's possible over in the archaeology part of the wing of the building. When someone specializes in vascular structure, when some other kind, and you're like, oh, wait a second, let me go talk to Ricky over there in vascular structure archaeology. Am I getting too far ahead, or is that how that works? Where you look at different disciplines and then sub-disciplines in there where maybe it's relevant to what you're doing? Yeah,
well, I think a lot of our science now, or my science now, is collaborative. So I have a particular strength, and my colleagues will have a different strength, but together we're a pretty good team. And this paper that we wrote on what we call the Cerulean Mastodon site is a reflection of that. I mean, I was involved in the original excavation, and I have a geology background, so I know the site very well. And we brought in archaeologists who knows a lot about how bones are broken by humans and by other activities. And then another archaeologist who's a lithic expert, how rocks are used as tools. And then a geochronologist, somebody who could date the site. And another paleontologist who's an expert on mastodon anatomy. And so we had 10 authors on that paper. And that's not unusual nowadays.
Yeah, notwithstanding the whole technical influence that technology's had on it, like the scans or anything, but just the human element, the collaboration where before it was, Dr. Jawbone in whatever state or country, and he's working on this thing, and that's his thing, and he doesn't even know to ask all of these other 20-pound brain club members, hey, can you weigh in on this because you're an expert at this? And I mean, just how important to you as a guy that thinks long range in time, how important is that this millifraction of a second in time called the information age and the internet? How has that changed, and how is that going to continue to revolutionize your field on what you do?
Well, one of the things in paleontology is that our source material is buried in the ground. We have to find it first, and then we have to excavate it, and then we have to prepare it so we can see it, which means we have to remove the enclosing sediment. And sometimes that sediment is soft and you can brush it off with a paintbrush. And sometimes it's so hard you need a pneumatic jackhammer to get it off of there. And then there's everything in between. With new imaging techniques, it may be that we don't really have to do all that preparation. We can just look at it, virtually look at it.
What have we got right now, like as far as technology or machinery that takes an X-ray of the Earth's surface down, and how far does it get? Talk a little about that's fascinating.
I haven't used any, but we're about to do this. We're going to go out to the site where we collected this mastodon and do a GPR survey, a ground penetrating radar survey. Archaeologists use it, and it's so I don't know really anything about it, but a colleague at San Diego State is a quaternary geologist, and he has he puts these antennas out, and then he drives this or pushes this cart, looks like a lawnmower, across the ground surface, and it takes readings of the subsurface, and it has apparently some fairly good accuracy depending upon the strength of the signal.
And it's like the size of a lawnmower.
Yeah.
What happens when they build one like the Hubble telescope? Those big graders that do the commercial construction. Some genius comes up with that. It's the bigger, yeah. Well, because the bigger's always better for Americans, especially. Yeah. Chinese are pretty good at it too.
Well, that's because they get it from us. Oops.
We're going to get into some conspiracy theory here. Yes.
No, but so I don't know. I haven't used this GPR technology, but I'm excited about it because apparently it'll show not only, where potentially fossils are and rocks and maybe a human skeleton or something. But it'll also
Tom's
show
animating his best impersonation of a human skeleton. This is obviously how everyone dies. We'll get a picture of Tom hanging in the show notes. This is Dead Human Skeleton by Tom Demere. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
With me, it always defaults quickly to a high school mentality. That's just.
I want to ask though about that. So these radars, it's part fish finder, where you're like, there is something worth digging here, or is it like we want to get away from digging and we want to maintain the context? Because if there's microscopic fossils, everything you dig away can be something part of the record, right?
Yeah, the context is everything, especially for a site like I'm describing. It's the arrangement of material. It's not this one particular object, but it's that object in relation to everything else around it. So it's more like a crime scene investigation where you have to have all the evidence, its distribution in space, and both horizontally and vertically, and so because it all is part of one story. And so we're hoping that this GPR survey will allow us to find targets, so to speak, but then also it'll show us, I'm told, the stratigraphy, the layering. and because you want to, everything in one layer has the same temporal context versus the layer below it versus the layer above it.
I like how you kind of baited that too, Pete, by saying, what if you find something, you start digging? Do those in you or and those in your field, once you see that image or there's something on it, do you have some obsessive compulsive drive to dig? Like
digging's fun.
We have to do
Digging's fun.
Like I can't go over to Tom's house. He's got like potholes in his yard. Like that's what I see.
My wife said as soon as I started working at the museum, you can bring all that stuff here.
Yeah.
But yeah, digging's fun. It's exciting.
How many have you been on throughout your career?
Oh, I don't know.
And they call it a dig?
Well, no, we call it an excavation. Yeah, I don't know.
Me and Pete have done some excavation in our time in the military. Normally 4 feet by 4 feet by chest height.
These are foxholes you're talking
about? I actually have a horrible...
Hey, this is Pete A. Turner from Lions Rock Productions. We create podcasts around here, and if you, your brand, or your company want to figure out how to do a podcast, just talk to me. I'll give you the advice on the right gear, the best plan, and show you how to take a podcast that makes sense for you, that's sustainable, that's scalable, and fun. Hit me up at pete@breakitdownshow.com. Let me help. I want to hear about it.
These are foxholes you're talking
about? I actually have a horrible story. It's not quite paleontology, but... on our camp, there were tells. A tell is a mound of something that was not naturally there. And we were driving giant army trucks over it, and they were scooping it, practicing army stuff, and there was all kinds of artifacts in it. We had filled HESCO barriers with artifact-laden dirt.
What country was this?
Iraq.
In Iraq?
I mean, you can't...
there's so much history there.
Oh, my God. And then so the Army's like...
And so little technology.
So many units later... Yeah, as we were closing this camp down, I mean, all kinds of stuff. It was shocking. And then we, because the brigade has everything you ever need in it, we had a guy who's an archaeologist who flew robot planes for the infantry.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He's like, well, I happen to be an archaeologist, and they're like, get over there, because it's a pretty bad crime to be smashing artifacts everywhere. So yeah, it's terrible.
That's something cool that just a thought just came in my head. With what we enjoy, we blend a little bit of everything, like science and military science or whatever, but we enjoy a lot of freedom with partner nations and what we do here in America to dig and get permits and all this. There's a lot of that doesn't go on because, one, like I just said, there's certain countries, third world, developing and emerging countries, that just don't have the technology. They don't have the desire to learn about this rich history.
They're just trying to survive.
Just trying to survive. But in your community here in America, is we're so lucky to be safeguarded by, we got the naval base here and the Marine Corps base. We're pretty safe down here in
we
Southern
got
California.
the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean.
Exactly.
That helps too.
Yeah, see, that's how he thinks. I think city to city, he thinks ocean to ocean. So, but do you ever talk within your community about there's areas of the world that you don't have access to because of political restrictions, and you're like, God, if we can only get into Babylon, or God, if we can only get into here, what?
Well,
what's your bucket list country? You're like, man, I want to get in there and dig something up.
Pakistan.
You want to dig in Pakistan?
And then do you and the archaeologists have to get into like arm wrestling matches, decide who gets to dig because they're above you, right, in the stratification?
Yeah, but often the deposits are. If there's old deposits to excavate, the younger deposits are gone already because they're exposed at the surface.
Right.
Now, if it's a slope, and you've got like the Grand Canyon, and you've got lots of layers going down, it's still not going to be. You're not going to be interfering.
Why Pakistan?
Well, the earliest whales, walking whales, are found in Pakistan. This animal called Ambulocetus, which literally means walking whale. Is from Pakistan. I'm from Pakistan, and the oldest known whale is called Pachycetus from Pakistan. And I have colleagues, Phil Gingrich at the University of Michigan, and Hans Tavison, who was a student of Phil's. They found these early whales over in Pakistan went before all the bad things were happening, and they've been closed out of that. Nobody's been excavating there, and maybe with all the impact. There's maybe there's new exposures of these early whales, so that would be an area that's kind of off limits. Well, it is off limits now because it's just too dangerous. But who knows what's there?
That's like your Disneyland of excavations.
Yeah. I mean, because you're a scientist, but you're not like a cosmologist. All numbers, right? Like big, powerful numbers. How much is your field an art versus a science? Because it sounds like you guys have to get way out of your head to think of what's possible, right?
Well, statistics are important.
Okay.
But I'm statistically challenged, so so I leave that to my friends who are better at that.
Yeah.
Is their focus and their strength. Yeah, that's.
So you're really not a quant guy. You're really qualitative, maybe.
No.
I love it. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm more qualitative.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. And yet you're a science. Like a real science, not like a hippy dippy one, like sociology or something.
Well, that's a social science.
Yeah. Whatever.
They don't even have to take chemistry. What's with that?
JV.
No, I'm sorry to my friends who are social science.
No, I'll throw them under the bus. And go for it.
All my papers are in the social
Stephanie's
science.
like, I was a social scientist major. No, she wasn't. You were not. History. Oh.
See?
And
just
I was a science major, criminal justice science.
Fun show note for Stephania.
Worthless degree.
Stephania.
Stephania.
I can't get it right. Yeah, so Scott always gets names wrong. Tim's not Tom, Tom's not Tim. So Stephania, right?
Yeah.
Stephania.
Stephania.
Step to the plate.
Stephania, okay, Stephania.
Stephania.
Argentinian.
Oh, great. Cosmologists still have to use art to kind of break their paradigm. Like what if people were made out of gold as an element?
Mm-hmm.
And that sends them on a path where they might think of a new way of approaching an old problem. Do you have these kind of things where, just reconstructing what into some other way helps you see something differently?
Well, I think there's an art to science. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's such a big idea, science, right?
Yeah.
And there's room for everybody, even archaeologists.
I like how you. I mean,
Sorry.
From an industry, leader in your field is very humble again about what you're not good at. Hey, I'm not this guy. I don't do this. So when the community calls up and they say, "Oh, we need an answer on this," we got to call Tom. Like, what is your? What do you say you're best at?
That's an interesting question. My primary expertise is on the evolution of whales and other marine mammals. Only because I've looked at so many and I've thought about this for a long time. So I've looked at the whole range from the earliest to the present one. I've done dissections of modern whales just to kind of get a sense of how their bodies work and are put together and how they're plumbed.
Yeah.
And how their bones are used by the muscles that they have. And so we've done some groundbreaking work in that regard. So it is more of a qualitative approach to understanding morphology and what it has to tell us about evolution, because my degree at UCLA was in evolutionary biology. And paleontologists, we also refer to ourselves as paleobiologists. I think that's kind of more my shtick is looking at the big picture for lineages of organisms from the earliest forms that are just starting to diverge from their ancestors. Lauren Isley used to say that those animals need to be watched because over time they're going to become something different.
Yeah.
When you think about whales, and we look at them just as an example, we look at the DNA of whales and we compare it to all the DNA of all living mammals. It's most closely related to artiodactyls, even-toed ungulates, and hippos.
Hippos, yeah, they're cousins, right? Yeah.
They're evolutionary cousins, both in terms of their DNA, but also in terms of their soft anatomy, and also in terms of their skeletons to some extent, primarily plumbing in the head. So that's pretty crazy. But go back in time, 52 million years ago, to Pakistan, and you have these artiodactyls that are like putting their feet in the water. And they look like other artiodactyls, but they're doing something different.
Yeah.
And they're moving into an aquatic environment. They're amphibious, and they need to be watched, as Lauren Isley said, because over evolutionary time, they give up the connection to the land. They lose their hind limbs. They're still air-breathing animals, but they're fully aquatic, and they're whales. And
I think most have the opposite perception that everything comes from the water.
Well, there is that. So this is a reinvasion. of the sea.
Ah.
So, life comes out of the sea, onto land, diversifies, and then goes back into the sea because there's all these opportunities.
You guys have an Allosaurus downstairs. And when you look at it, I see a tibia, I see amphibia, I see tarsals, metatarsal. I see the same bones that I have.
Yeah.
We're
all tetrapods. Allosaurus, you and me, my dog.
Right.
We're all tetrapods. So we have this common ancestor. You go back in time enough, and we have, we're all the same.
So whales have a tibia, fibia also, or no?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Ancestral whales had.
I know our hands look similar in bone structure.
Well, they have a humerus, a radius, and ulna. They have carpals, metacarpals, phalanges. They have 5 fingers.
Do any of them owe me money?
You'd have to ask them.
Not to shake them down.
When I was in college, I was studying. I was in anthropology, and I think I may have even been taking a philosophy of religion class at the same time in the same semester, which is disaster for me. Again,
well, you're a deep thinker.
I don't know. Not many. You may be the only person to ever accuse me of that, but
well, as you get older, you become deeper thinking.
Like denser, maybe, but deeper. I don't know. But I write some paper, and I was really confused about something. So I reached out to a dear friend of mine, Dr. George Taylor. He's a cardiologist, one of the premier in the Midwest at the time. And I asked George, I said, what do you think about religion and science? And he gave me a great answer. But before I give you the answer he gave, I'd like to ask you that question. Is a person of, steeped in science, and how the two, especially in a lot of the divisive discussion we have on mainstream media about religion and politics and science and everything we do, how is that affected how you view things in your job and faith, or if you have faith or lack of faith? How do you view that?
Well, for science, the role of science is to provide us with knowledge of the natural world, how it works, our place in it, so to speak, in terms of ecologically, but largely how does it work and how can that help us survive, right? It also explains origins. And although religion used to do that, used to have a cosmology part of it and the moral part of it. Sure. I mean, those are the two main supports of or products of religion, I would say. But science, I think, does a much better job explaining origins and the natural world, and so we don't have to worry about demons and terrible things happening that are supernatural, because we can understand how the natural world works, and we can understand why we have thunder and lightning storms here right now, and why people have tornadoes in other parts of this country right now, and hurricanes. We understand that. It's not some whimsical God saying we're going to punish these bastards because they did something terrible. Yeah. At least I think. So I mean, I look at that's the role of science in the modern world, and it provides us with, I think, comfort in that we know what to expect, right? And religion has this whole other thing about moral messages, and how to treat each other, and at least I was brought up Episcopalian, altar boy, and
Order of St. Vincent, brother. Bring it in, Tom. Boom.
St. Andrews, and I loved the pageantry of it. I loved the music, the great people, but I don't think it explains where we came from. I don't think it explains the natural world. And I have a friend of mine, Jack Horner, who talks about there are two Bibles. There's one written by God, and there's one written by man. Yeah. And he chooses to study the one written by God, which he means the world, the outcrops, Grand Canyon, planet, moon, things you can see and touch, and that are there, obviously there. And the other is this book that purports to be the Word of God, but is written by humans. So that's the way he looks at it. That's not necessarily the way I look at it, but it's kind of an interesting way of thinking about the world that we live in.
So growing up in the Episcopal Church, and for listeners who don't know what being an Episcopalian is, it's kind of like Catholicism light. It's like
Yeah.
all the religion
Without
half the
the
guilt.
guilt.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
only half the guilt.
Yeah,
What's that?
yeah, he's legit. He's been vetted right now, so that's it. That's our bumper sticker. I think. I'll give you George's answer. And he said, science has always played a huge part in everything we do, but the Bible is a great guidebook for life and answers those questions that science has not. What happens when science answers all the questions?
Well, I don't think it ever can. It can't answer why we're here. It can just say how we're here. So the questions of why are really not something that science really answers so much.
There's also a moral accountability that you get with religion.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, you can bastardize it and make it horrible, but there's something. Science doesn't require you to be a better person. Maybe a more enlightened person, but it doesn't make God-fearing has a place in society where.
Well, I think it's better to be God-loving than God-fearing.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, because to me, some part of religion or some religious people it's only the afterlife insurance that they get from it.
Yeah.
Rather than how they treat one another, how they treat their family, how they treat other people. And I think it's there's a expression in evolutionary ecology, reciprocal altruism, which it doesn't make sense from a natural selection standpoint necessarily to help your neighbor, right? Because if you're struggling to get ahead, this tooth and claw thing. But you see organisms that do that. Humans do that, and naked mole rats do that. Bees do. I mean, there's a lot of this cooperation in nature, and it's because you help me. It's quid pro quo. You help me, I'll help you, and it's. I don't know. I mean, I think it's natural to have that altruistic behavior within humanity. I think, and the aberration is not to be that way.
Some things like religion.
But I'm also an idealist, so.
An optimistic idealist.
Is that compatible or not?
I don't know.
Science?
It's what it is.
When I struggle with religion, I find, and a lot of things, like what I do in combat zones, I can't look directly at it and see it. I have to kind of look at it from a peripheral view because it just comes into focus more. It's more possible out there. So like religion, Jay Moore's great uncle, I think, he's the guy that wrote Silent Night. So I don't necessarily have to believe in God, but that guy sure did and came up with this song. So there's evidence of God right there, but I don't, I can't really wrap my hands around it. Is that, when you get to the edges of what you guys are learning and understanding, is it sort of like that where you can't just tackle it straight on? You have to kind of let the... Well,
there's some things we'll never know.
Okay.
Probably. And I don't know what you call that. I mean, the Native Americans called it Wankantanka. The great mystery, and it's like things are mysterious that you want to give it a name, call it God. I don't know, but to suggest that it's necessary to fear God because you're going to burn in hell. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't. Do we really need to talk about this?
No, we talk about whatever we want. It does. You can pull the thread on that sucker, man, and that's a long sweater to unravel right there. Talk about that. Let's talk about something fun.
My biggest fear is that people will use the Bible and its prophecies to force us into a path that we can't get off of. These self-fulfilling prophecies like Armageddon. Yeah. I mean, who wants that? But there are people that want that.
And there are scientists who say, like, this is happening. We've only got another, 330 years left. Or they forecast that based off of scientific evidence. But with an evolving planet and evolving solar system, is like, who's to say things can't change, that other impacts from the universe will make it better? Something will sprout to life or...
Well, I mean, the wonderful thing about the geologic record is that it records all these catastrophes that have occurred on this planet, natural, earthbound catastrophes as well as extraterrestrials with,
Here's something that fascinates me that comes from your world is Lake Bonneville. I just cannot get enough thinking about it and talking about it and reading about it because I just find it fascinating that whole massive section of the Great Western States was just a big pond, and then other big ponds kind of connected to it. Is that like a place where you're like, we should dig over here in this part of Nevada or whatever?
Well, geologically, that's pretty young, though. So
okay.
That's all related to the ice ages.
Okay.
And have you heard of the scab lands in eastern Washington?
Man, We don't know
I've never
anything.
been there.
Sounds cool.
Lake Cooley or Cooley Dam.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there are these because Lake Bonneville is a glacial lake. It's there
Right.
because of glacial runoff and all that water filling it up, and the Grand Coulee and the Scablands in eastern Washington. There was a glacial dam that broke catastrophically, and huge volume of water just rushed down that drainage to the sea and just destroyed the landscape. But it's so, I mean, and it was such a puzzle to people for a long time. How did this happen? And it was.
I fear Tom's one of those guys who sits back when we register a 7.7 earthquake. He's like, yes, couldn't it have been bigger? Because it's like something's going to pop out of the ground. I was like, yeah, I can dig there now.
Skeleton.
It's like, I got to get down there with my shovel.
That's the other thing about geology, though. The earthquake, it's nothing personal. It's Earth's growing pains. You know, they just happen.
Who would have taken offense to that, me or the Earth? No offense to Earth. No offense, Earth. It's just Tom talking.
But I mean, some people take it personally. You know, like it's.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, it's terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, magnitude 8 or 9. Damn.
Yeah.
He's like, oh,
How
man,
much-
if only we could get
No, I don't want it.
No.
Is water a significant impediment to you guys? Like the Mediterranean must just have just treasure troves of stuff, just 8 feet deep, but under 80 feet of water.
Yeah, water's a problem.
Okay. Yeah.
The geologic record for the Mediterranean indicates that it dried up about 7 million years ago,
Okay.
and then catastrophically refilled.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I think about, you know, I always like throw a true confession out. Episcopalian, I think, is the first time I've mentioned that, but
Nice.
it's kind of weak. But we had another. We were telling Steph, because I'm going to screw up the name again.
Stephania.
Stefania. That was a horrible Argentinian accent. It was more Italian, but
It's the thought that counts.
we were telling her. We're interviewing this Navy SEAL best-selling author, actor who's in Transformers, which has a little archaeological, paleontological history to it, right? Didn't they come up unearth those
I think so.
from a Hollywood standpoint? But true confession is I am extremely energized, like, to be here at the Nat and talk to you about all this stuff, because there's so many things I'd never thought of until I get down and I meet people, and thanks to Pete for introducing me to you. Like, all of the different fields you could go in that are in paleontology. You're not just the guy stuck in a museum surrounded by Arctic walruses and skeletons in the library with, you know, nerdy T-shirts like, hey, science is fun. There's so many other implications. The industries that use paleontology in this study, like the oil industry, you know, crime agencies, you know, forensic paleontology, all of these things that are really cool fields, and I never even, you just don't think about those things.
Well, I have several colleagues that their profession is they teach human anatomy at medical schools because they have this strong vertebrate anatomy background, and that's the only place they could get a job, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so they, that's not. I mean, they enjoy it.
Sure.
Is it tough to get a job? You graduate, you got a geology degree in undergrad, and then you get your master's and your PhD and in your specific field.
Is it difficult? Yeah, there aren't as many jobs as there are.
How many paleontologists are
Says
working
the
at
guy with the job for
Starbucks?
40 years. Never leaving.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I feel guilty at times, but I get over it.
Not that guilty.
I
Come
get
on.
over it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guilt is a wasted emotion sometimes. But yeah, I don't know how many work at Starbucks, but
It's like, I have an art history degree. Good luck with that. But I guess you have to
there's the
be.
gig economy, I hear. So
Yes.
Well, yeah. I think it's pretty tough though. If you go on Indeed, you're not typing in paleontology. I suppose you could work your way up too in certain fields. Maybe in private sector or in the, you know, as a curator, work your way up. I'm sure there's a career path for all that, but it's going to be pretty daunting.
Yeah.
But I think, like you can tell you're really passionate about what you do and you have this love for it. And what I love even more is it's just in the last hour, you've brought in so many different aspects of who you are. And what I always love is you could totally blow my mind. Here's another true confession. I was going to come into this interview with Pete. He goes, hey, you want to come interview this guy? You know, his name's Dr. Tom Demere. And I was like, I have no idea. I'm way out of my league. But I love it that you make the connection to people and how impactful that is. That's what always fascinates me, to get, it kind of gets me energized and really kind of look at things from a different angle where I haven't in a long, long time. So that's super cool.
It's one of the wonderful things about working at the San Diego Natural History Museum, the NAT. For scientists, it's this interesting sweet spot that allows you to interface between academia and the general public. And I get to meet these little kids that know more about dinosaurs than most people.
Yeah.
Actually, sometimes than me, and they're so proud of their knowledge and the fact that they know a hell of a lot more than their parents do about this subject, and they're oozing with excitement, and I get to talk to them at this stage in their careers, so to speak, and that's really exciting to me. It's a real privilege.
How many of those kids have come back and said, "I did it. I got all the way through. I'm a proto you now"? At
the PhD level, I only have one that's actually come back that I know of, but I mean, the point is that they're interested in science and they feel that they can do it. And that's so important to them, that they feel that they have the confidence that they can be an explorer, a scientific explorer, whether it be in the field or in a library or on the internet or whatever. But they go in different directions. But at least they have a passion for something, and not just with a joystick.
I like that term, explorer. Yeah. Most people don't associate scientist as synonymous with explorer, but if you put on your Instagram page scientist, they'd be like, dork, I'm not following him. If you put explorer, you're like, badass, he's on the Ark polar ice cap. You're like, yeah, I'm going to follow that guy. Like, I'm trying to put things in relative terms.
Searching for walking whales.
Yeah, searching for walking whales. Like, yeah, it's at walking whales on Instagram.
When you're like your peer in New York at the Metropolitan Natural History Museum, does that person, are they tied to a desk because they're in New York and it's just like, it's more museum than research facility, or how does that work out for you guys?
Well, the American Museum of Natural History in New York is well endowed financially, and they do international expeditions, and their field of study is the whole planet.
Wow.
Our museum is a regional museum. Our focus is on what we call Peninsular California, so it's the Baja California Peninsula in Southern California, and so that's our area of expertise, and we know it better than anybody else, we think, and that's what our collections reflect. So they get to do some terrific field work. They are in Manhattan, obviously, but it's a terrific museum.
Do you guys ever put scuba on and go into the Brea tar pits? Look for stuff down there, like really get deep. I mean, I'm actually asking, can you explore that space? Or
well, the La Brea tar pits, you couldn't use scuba. No, it's too sticky and too viscous. They and they've been excavating there since the 19 teens.
Oh wow!
So the 1917, I think. But scuba offshore, and in Florida, there are paleontologists that their field areas are underwater.
Subs. Yeah.
And they excavate these big megalodon teeth and...
Yeah, they've got whole rivers just full of shark teeth. Like you just walk up and go, there's a shark tooth. Right? Literally walk up and walk out with a 3-inch shark tooth of some kind. I'm saying shark tooth.
Yeah, no, they are. Yeah. So, but I've never done that kind of field work where I'm in the water. I mean, I swim. But
sure.
Still surf?
No, I ocean swim. In fact, I was swimming this morning at the Cove here.
Nice.
Before work. It was terrific. It was a beautiful morning.
Do you like to go traditional whale watching, or is that too magoo for you? You're like, when you've seen this.
No.
You've seen them walk into the water. Like
that's in my mind's eye.
Too parochial.
I've had the pleasure of going down to the San Ignacio Lagoon in Baja California, when the gray whales are in there in the nursery, and petting calves primarily, but sometimes the mothers will come up. But that experience is mind-blowing.
That's pretty cool to have that connection, like when you can. And I'm fascinated by the ocean and the water and everything, and through a lot of the experiences we've had with guests on the show, just to like really open your eyes up to that. And then I wish we'd have done this, and we could have pick Tom's brain when I was just down in Baja California in Mexico at Cabo to sound smarter in front of everybody. Basically,
He would have said, "Go to Giggling Marlin and get shots."
Giggling Marlin?
That's where they hang you upside down like a marlin. And
Oh, really?
Shots. Yeah. I did not do that. I was in East Cape, so I've heard they do that.
Upside down?
Yeah, like a marlin. They hang you upside
I
down.
know,
yeah.
but that'd be hard to swallow.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not conducive.
Maybe it's an enema or something.
Amber now. We're running low on time.
Yeah, well,
so I want to make sure.
Are you serious?
Yeah. That was
Oh, my
like
God.
That.
I thought it was going to be like in science class again, like, God, when's the bell going to ring? And then Tom pulls out, I'm a photographer, surfer, badass dude,
Yeah.
and like does, yeah.
It's incredible, right? Yeah, and,
So what else are we
we
gonna
love
talk
these
about?
experiences because, it's easy to think a museum is boring, but here we are having this great conversation. What should people do who want to? I mean, obviously come to the Nat, great. But there's people in Germany, there's people in Korea listening to this show. So, what can people do to just get a better handle on for Scott, right? He's a Marine. Those guys can watch Heartbreak Ridge over and over again and just be like, yeah, that's us. What's your guys' thing in paleontology? What do you want to watch? Do you want to watch Jurassic Park, even though that's not really your guys' spot? But what do you guys do?
Oh, you mean?
Yeah, like if someone wants to watch, be like, this is what paleontologists love. Do you guys? Is it documentaries? Is it a book or?
Well, it's books. I mean, because you have the opportunity to reflect on what you're experiencing. But I mean, I watch a lot of public broadcasting. If I'm watching television, like Nature. I mean, I like pop culture stuff too, though. But I mean, Jurassic Park is fun.
Yeah.
There's some science in there, and I think it gives you the wonder of what dinosaurs were like. I mean, that's what I experienced as a paleontologist, looking at extinct animals, trying to envision what they lived like. So this idea,
That's the art side.
This idea of paleobiology. How did this animal live? I mean, this is an early whale from Peru, and it's an artist's reconstruction of what it might have looked like. So trying to envision what they looked like, but also how they lived and interacted with other organisms. So Jurassic Park is fun in that way because it brings these animals light, and it uses science. I mean, Jack Horner, dinosaur paleontologist, was the technical advisor on I think all the Jurassic Parks, and so that there's a lot of rigor in, not 100% rigor
Sure.
because it's Hollywood, but it does give you a sense of what these extinct animals were like, because we think of them as skeletons, but no, they had flesh on it, and they interacted with each other. They had offspring, and they had to eat, and they had to copulate, they had to defecate, they had to do all the things that organisms do today, and then trying to envision all that is pretty exciting. And so shows like that like Walking with Dinosaurs or Walking with Beasts or whatever those other shows that are on the Discovery Channel. But there's a lot of garbage out there too. These mockumentaries, these things that, I don't know if you saw one about the mermaids.
No.
No.
And they put it out. It's like it's a real documentary, and they have scientists from NOAA and stuff, but it's fake. And at the end, they kind of say that, but you watch it.
People still going to reference it.
Yeah, because they think it's real.
Yeah, so I guess for the people who want to be tuned in on from something that's really representative of the community, where they're not getting a subscription to Geodiversitas with the Peruvian whales or Nature magazine,
yeah.
Which Nature magazine is not sponsoring the show, but that could read is basically.
Well, I'd say, and the other thing you might want to do is listen to the Break It Down show.
Yeah,
because there's some truth on that show, right?
Yeah.
And they're conversations with people that don't have an agenda.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love to have your peers who are PhDs, because publishing in Nature is the pinnacle. I mean, that'll blow your mind. You read that every issue, and it blow you away. It says quantum logic on there. And we had UCSD cosmologist Andrew Friedman on the show, and he talks about quantum, whatever you want. And you go quickly from cosmic bell test to John Knox and Presbyterian thought about predestination, and then bang a left, and all of a sudden you're over in quantum gravity. I didn't know quantum gravity existed.
No.
I just extrapolated from the conversation. He's like, no, quantum gravity's it's an emerging field and it's blowing our minds. And and so the next thing you know, you're talking about dinosaurs. So for sure, all of these things, Nature magazine is incredible for that.
No, it is.
I mean, that magazine right there is a argument.
And don't you remember, like, growing up, I think this is a good message for guys who are a little bit older. And remember when magazines would show up at your house, or your grandparents would get you a subscription to whatever magazine. We had National Geographic. Do they still even make that?
Oh, yeah,
Or is it all online?
No.
Still have it?
Yep. It's in our library.
Yeah. Yes. But to get that, I think, is a great source, because to get your name on an article in that magazine means you are extremely vetted and you are the resident expert in that field. Vice, hey, here's an Apple gift card. Like, go buy your kid a subscription to Nature magazine. I think, or whatever they're really interested in, where there's credible authors, credible contributors in the field. And there's cool pictures in it too, for those who have short attention span theater like me, who can't read a lot, which is my curse. But
what's the best way to find out about the Nat?
Go to our website, www.thenat, right?
sdnat.org. We're also on social media.
Where can they find you on social?
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter are our big ones.
And what do they type in?
SDNHM or San Diego Natural History Museum.
Boom.
You see, I don't know any of this stuff.
You're just here for the looks.
You know that whales could walk.
Yes.
So
Exactly. Yeah.
I was there. It's 52 million years ago.
I love it.
Thanks, Tom.
Oh, yeah, well, thank you.